The 2022 NFL draft is upcoming. So let's talk about the quarterbacks in this year's draft and how we rank them in a dynasty perspective. This is my 1.0, okay? So this list could definitely change when we see the combine and more information comes out. However, at the moment, I'm going to give you my top 5. I'll start with an honorable mention. That's Desmond Ritter, excuse me. He didn't make the top 5. I'm sorry. I don't know what to tell you. I wasn't as impressed watching his film as other people. But at number 5, someone who I was very surprised when I watched his tape by, Carson Strong out of Nevada. He's 6'4", 215 pounds. Very good size for a quarterback in the NFL. In 2021, he completed 70% of his passes, throwing over 4,000 yards, 36 touchdowns on only 8 interceptions. Honestly, watching his tape, I was very, very surprised. Like I said, I think he could end up as a draft day steal. His arm strength is very good. Arm accuracy, like I said, last year he had 70% pass completion percentage, but guess what? He's done that 2 years in a row. He's put up 70% pass completion percentage. Takes care of the ball, threw an interception on 1.37% of his throws. What do head coaches want out of a quarterback? Can you protect the ball and can you throw it accurately? They didn't have many big games, if you will, in the Mountain West Conference, but in the big games that he did have, he balled out. He played really, really well, and multiple times he threw over 4 touchdowns. Some games he threw 5 touchdowns. Probably the least mobile quarterback in this NFL draft. He actually had negative rushing yards on his career in Nevada. So don't expect anything out of the rushing game from him. And another thing that worries me is he didn't really play elite competition in the Mountain West Conference. Okay, he balled out, but who did he ball out against? A bunch of no names. No offense. I mean, you guys are D1 athletes. I'm not. When I think about Carson Strong, think about another name last year that I viewed as a sleeper, and that was Davis Mills. I could see Strong being a round 3, round 4 guy who ends up being a potential steal. Look, I tried to comp him. It was really hard. He's a very, very poor man's Peyton Manning. I'm not saying he's Peyton Manning. I'm saying the way he plays is similar. I could see him going to the Broncos, Panthers. How about the Colts? Not so sold on Carson Wentz. Hey, go grab Carson Strong. You never know. At number 4, a lot of people have this guy as their number 1 quarterback. I don't. That could change. But as of right now, he's my 4. And that's Matt Corral out of Ole Miss. He's 6'1", 205 pounds, coming out as a junior, 3,350 yards, pretty much 20 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, put up an impressive 11 touchdowns on the ground with 614 rushing yards. Like I said, a lot of people are higher on Corral than me, and I understand it. The reality is, from Corral to the next 4, so the 4 that I'm about to talk about, including Corral, they are all so close in our grading system for me. I could see any of them being the best quarterback in this class. They all have pretty good upside, things that I really like about them, but they were all so close. Corral just ended up being the 4th one. Sneaky athleticism. You can see it on the tape. I mean, this guy doesn't look quick, but then gets out of the pocket and it's almost surprising. He's got a very big arm, can zip it on slants. That's the kind of quarterback I want, who can just zip the ball to the wide receiver in those slants and intermediate passes. Throws a 65-plus yard bomb pretty well and pretty accurately. And like I said, the mobility is impressive. 11 touchdowns on the ground. Won a good amount of games at Ole Miss. You want someone who is used to being in a winning culture. I question whether his athleticism is really going to translate versus NFL speed. A lot of people are naming him a dual threat quarterback. And from what I can see on his tape, he did that in college. I'm not so sure he can do that in the NFL against NFL speed. I don't think it's going to be his calling card, something that he can rely upon. And he didn't really play all that well in his big games versus Bama, Auburn. There were times where he did shrink against competition. I think he could be the best quarterback in this class. It's so close between him and these next 3 guys, but he just ended up as number 4 for me right now. I think about Derek Carr when I watch him. I think about Zach Wilson, a combination between them. I could see teams like Washington, maybe the Falcons, Saints. I think those teams could take a shot on him in the first round. Let's talk about number 3, which for me is Sam Howell out of North Carolina. 6'1", 220 pounds, coming out as a junior. In 2021, he had 62.5% pass completion percentage, 3,000 yards, just over 3,000 yards through the air, 24 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, and on the ground, who would have thought Sam Howell? I mean, 828 rushing yards and 11 touchdowns. Very, very impressive. I mean, I think he had to do that because of lack of talent around him. The year before, he was much more efficient, didn't really do much on the ground, but he had Javonte Williams and Michael Carter. He loses those guys as well as De'Ami Brown to the draft in 2021. So his team was definitely not as good around him. But it was really cool to see that part of his game. I think he's the best in the class on short to intermediate arm strength and accuracy. Those short slants, and not the long ball necessarily, but the short to intermediate type passes. I think he has the best strength and accuracy, has that zip that you want from your quarterback. Big, strong body, 6'1", 220 pounds, and surprisingly mobile. We saw that this year, almost early days of Big Ben. You know, kind of like that surprisingly mobile type player. Definitely had some weaknesses we need to focus on. 17 total turnovers in 2021. You have to fix that area of your game if a head coach is going to trust you to lead his team. And he did struggle to perform without those weapons, like I said. So I'm almost wondering, will he struggle if he goes to a rebuilding team? Does he need to fall in the draft to a team that's more complete to succeed? I don't know. It's just something that I've been thinking about. And if I had to comp him to a player, pre-injury Carson Wentz feels right. And early days Big Ben feels right to me as well. I think if he could land with the Steelers in the second round, or honestly, he's probably going to go in the first round. The Colts could be interesting as well as the Saints. All right, my number 2 quarterback on this list is Malik Willis out of Liberty. He's 6'1", 225 pounds, coming out as a redshirt senior. Definitely struggled this year in some big games, but still a decent stat line. 64.2 pass completion percentage, 2,260 yards, 20 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. Had a lot of fumbles though. But he almost put up 1,000 rushing yards, 944 on 14 touchdowns. I think he's one of the most electric players in college football for probably the past 2 years. I mean, his tape, he's showing some special things on tape. Athletically, this guy is a freak. He forced the most missed tackles by a quarterback within the first 6 games of a season ever. He can extend plays. He's got elite speed at the quarterback position. Very shifty, impossible to tackle. Massive arm. I mean, a lot of these guys who are super mobile, you worry about their arm, but he's got a massive arm. He can make the 60-plus yard throws, makes those off-balance throws. By far the highest upside of any quarterback in this class. But he might have the lowest floor. You know, there's a lot of things that are going to have to go right for him, and he's going to have the right coaching staff around him, I think. Big weakness for him is the turnovers. I mean, in the last 2 years, 18 interceptions and 14 fumbles. You have to improve in that area to be a starting quarterback in the NFL. Didn't really show up in big games. I really wanted to see him play better in big games. There's some games where he threw 3 interceptions against good competition. So it was pretty disappointing. Accuracy can definitely use some more consistency, and did not play elite competition either. He was in the Conference USA. It's not elite teams in there. So it's really hard to gauge versus the competition. The pro comp is, of course, Lamar Jackson. I don't know who else you could comp him to other than Lamar Jackson. That's the upside, but it doesn't mean he's going to be that good of a player. I like him with Washington, Houston, or what about the Browns? What if the Browns had their own Lamar Jackson in their own division? I don't think Baker's the guy. Why not take a shot on him if he falls into the second round? All right, I'm going to give you my number 1 quarterback, and that is, of course, Kenny Pickett out of Pittsburgh. He's 6'3", 220 pounds, a redshirt senior, had a great 2021. 67.2% passes completed, 4,319 yards, 42 tutties. Only 7 interceptions. He put 5 touchdowns up as well on the ground. I look at Kenny Pickett's tape, and Mel Kiper said this. I'm not Mel Kiper, but he said, no one should be called NFL ready. And I agree, but you look at Kenny Pickett, out of all the quarterbacks, who's the most ready to start right now? And I do think that's either Kenny Pickett or Sam Howell. It's one of those guys. I do think it's Kenny Pickett, and he improved each year in college. He has very good arm strength. Great accuracy on those deep balls, surprisingly mobile and like able to extend plays. You can see him rolling out of the pocket. Kind of Mahomes-esque, Justin Herbert-esque. He's not that good of a player, But you can see that in his game, he played really, really, really well in big games. I mean, versus Clemson and Wake Forest. So it's not the SEC, it's the ACC. But still, in his biggest games, he played really, really well, and he can take care of the ball, which is what you like to see as a head coach. Sometimes when he's flustered, he throws off his back foot. He does that way too often. I think it affects his accuracy. So he needs to work on that part of his game. And another worry, ACC competition. The ACC was hot garbage this year. I think we can all agree. So it is a little bit worrisome that he had his best year versus a very bad ACC conference. If I look at a pro comp for him, it's really hard to find one, but I think of Justin Herbert a little bit. A poor man's Justin Herbert. I'm not saying he will be Justin Herbert, but you can see the similarities in their game and the type of play, type of movements that they make. I think he could be great in Pittsburgh. He's from Pittsburgh in college. Why not go to the Steelers? Why not have the Steelers trade up for him? He could go to the Lions, maybe to the Panthers as early as number 6, or he will probably go to Washington if he's there at 11. This is my top 5 quarterbacks. Let me know if you disagree or agree in the comments below. Yo, what's good? Thanks for watching. We got a lot more videos.
A lot more.
If you want more videos.
Watch
now,
it.
You can also subscribe.
Right now.
If you want to.
You need to.
And lastly, don't forget that you can sign up to support the show and get exclusive content by going to patreon.com/fantasylandfam.